Hi everyone, so I'm going to use the Dawn Lewis 6x6 templates to create 11 cards from 6 sheets of 6x6 pattern paper. I have an incomplete paper pad from my previous video, and I'll put a link to the previous video in the top corner. This is using the Doodlebug Designs 6x6 paper pad named Hello. I've picked 6 pattern papers that you can see laid out here, and they are already in position of 1 through 6. And then I will chop up all of the pieces. I have 11 blank cards to my right-hand side on my desk so that I can chop everything out per these designs, put it straight onto the card base, and then I can work through what I want to do to decorate. I've decided that I'm going to continue with this paper pad using the medium blue for mats because I think that really matches well with the colours in the pattern paper and is also a nice contrast to the white card bases. I'm just using standard A2 card bases, so these are 5.5 by 4.25. So I'm also going to use some of my other leftovers. I have these particular cutter parts that are 1.5 by 2. I'm thinking some of these might be workable on the card designs. The other thing that I have is some of the stickers from the same pattern paper collection. I will see what I need to create the cards. I'll be using some of my leftover sentiments. These are all of my leftover birthday sentiments, so I'm sure I'll use some of those on the cards as well. For card number 1, the actual template was extremely simple. It was literally just one piece of pattern paper in 5.25 by 4 inches. So it had a 1/4 inch border around the edge. To add a bit of interest, I used some 1/4 inch charcoal grey strips that I had on my desk, and I lined up all 3 and I matted them on a piece of white cardstock. I put this strip down the left hand side of the card and then attached a navy blue happy birthday sentiment from my stash. To add a little bit more interest to the card, I then picked one of the stickers from the Icon series sheets, a blue butterfly, and that's card 1. For card number 2, this is also quite simple. It just has a square focal point in the middle of the design. So for this one, I chose to use some of the stickers from the Icon series and attach them to a square of pattern paper. In terms of this sentiment, I then selected something from my stash. It's just a very small black strip that says happy birthday. So I was able to attach that to the square with the camera sticker. And then I did move that around a little bit and try and decide where I wanted to put it. And in the end, I made a decision to put it in the bottom right-hand corner rather than the top center of the card. So that is card number 2. For card number 3, this card actually has quite a few layers involved. So for this top focal point here, I've matted it on navy cardstock. And then the piece that I'm attaching it to now, this is actually 2 squares of pink paper matted on one navy rectangle. When you put the diamond shape on top, it covers up the seam so it looks like one continuous piece of paper behind. I've chosen to use a happy birthday again, and this is just one that was already matted in blue, and the blue actually matches the pattern paper that we've used as part of that focal point. For the panel itself, I'm going to attach this onto the 5.5 by 4.25 card base that's been matted with a grey panel that's actually a 1/4 smaller, so 5.25 by 4 inches. For this embellishment piece, I've actually chosen to, instead of centering it on the card, I've actually put it on the bottom left-hand corner, and that is card number 3. For card number 4, this actually has 4 squares of the same pattern paper as part of the main concept of the design. I chose to mat those 4 pieces of paper onto some navy cardstock to make it easier actually to compile the card. So I'm adding one of my grey backing panels onto the white A2 card base, and then I can attach this key part of the template, which is the 4 squares. To add a little bit more interest, I've also added a sentiment with a banner die onto the squares and one of the Icon series stickers, which is a house. Because there's so much plain grey at the bottom of the card base, I chose to add a blue panel to add some interest. For card number 5, this has 2 quite large pieces of pattern paper. I've matted both of them on navy cardstock, which is well aligned to the template on the top left of the screen. After attaching the first piece, I then decided to add some cardstock behind so that the second piece was actually laying flat. If you attach it without doing this, you get a dip on the right hand side that's pretty noticeable. So most card makers, you'll see them actually mat some layers behind it, especially when they have a design that's of this type of nature. For the interest to the card, I actually used one of the cutter parts, and again you can see me adding a second layer because I intend to hang this off the left hand side of the smaller rectangle, and to make sure I don't have a dip or the card being uneven, I've attached some scrap cardstock to the left hand side. For the card, I've again used a happy birthday. This is one of the smaller ones, which is black and white and quite tiny, so that is card number 5. For card number 6, it's a very similar design to card number 5. It has the large rectangle on the left-hand side and then the smaller one on the right-hand side. Now, because of the pattern paper that I chose and the way that the actual orientation of the paper design is lined up, I did end up making the card look the same as card number 5. So instead of having the second piece of pattern paper horizontal, I actually attached it vertically. If I had had the paper that would have gone the other direction, I would have certainly aligned it to the template, but for the way that I had cut the paper and the designs I had used, this worked out a little better. So again, I have another cutter part and I'm layering that up with some scrap cardstock, and then I'm going to attach another one of the small happy birthday sentiments. I'll put a link below to the cards, to the stamp set that I used for these sentiments. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I have used it a lot, so I should definitely add a link for you. So that is card number 6. For card number 7, this one has 2 large pieces of pattern paper that pretty much cover the entire back of the card. So I didn't layer these 2 on navy cardstock. I simply attached them directly to the white card base, and that gave me full coverage of some colour on the back of the card without needing to actually add any of the grey panels or any of the navy cardstock. I then dug into my stash and found a die cut of the word happy, and this is laid up 3 times. And then I have attached this with some liquid glue, and then I have a separate sentiment that says birthday. So I've combined 2 separate sentiments here to create a little bit of interest and add happy birthday to this card. And I think so far every card I've created has been happy birthday. So let's see if we end up with 11 out of 11. I can't quite remember. In terms of adding some interest, I also dug into my stash here and figured out a couple of stickers that I could use to add interest, and it looks like I've used the arrow for this one. This is card 7. Card number 8 is quite similar to the previous card. However, it has 2 strips of pattern paper that match down either side of the card base. For me, that meant that I had these 2 pieces of pink gingham paper, and when I added these onto the card base directly, I then realised that the panel that was going to go down the middle, so the second pattern paper, actually is larger than the white space in the middle. So what I chose to do is actually use some of my scrap cardstock to balance that layer out so that I don't have a noticeable dip. So in the middle there is a layer of white paper so that when I attach this pattern paper on top, it's actually sitting nice and flat. In terms of a decoration or a sentiment for this particular card, I chose to use a strip that says birthday wishes. This again was something that I had in my stash, and I managed to partner this up quite well with the colours of this Hello paper pad. I then jumped into my stash of stickers again. I used quite a few stickers for this particular challenge, and I added the phone. That's card number 8. For card number 9, I have used many of the pattern papers. There is a focal point at the top, which is the main part of the card, and so that one pattern paper really has most of the attention. There's then a navy strip at the bottom that has 3 of the different pattern papers in just a small square. I believe it's 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. So I've chosen to use navy blue, and I use that for the matting of the large square at the top, so everything aligns and everything matches. I then attach the 3 little squares, and I've chosen to do those based off the colour that aligns best to be next to each other. So I moved those around. They weren't necessarily in the order that the template had them. In terms of what I'm doing for a sentiment, you can see here I'm using my die cut again. This was a die cut that I had or a die that I had in my stash, and it has some glittery teal paper on top, so this is going to be quite a bright sentiment compared to the others. I'm just gluing these on and being really careful to line them up. I think if you have a card design like this, you really need to make sure that everything's straight and symmetrical. Otherwise, it can just look a little bit messy. So just attaching the happy birthday now, and I can't remember if I picked a sticker from my stash. Yes, it looks like I did. I think I picked a couple of the flowers. We will see when we do the zoom whether or not my memory is good or not. But I'm pretty sure I put 3 flowers onto here, and that is card number 9 completed. For card number 10, this one did have 2 strips of pattern paper, and I again have used the happy birthday die cut. This is again the one with the shimmery teal that matched really well with the teal pattern paper that I had as a second strip. I can also see here that I've used an extra piece of pattern paper because there was too much of a gap between the 2 on the white card base. So I often make changes to templates like this. If things don't seem to be lining up, I'll just grab an extra piece of paper or remove a piece of paper from the design, and it still looks pretty similar to the template that was intended, but I've just made a slight adjustment so that the card itself looks balanced. So adding the birthday stamp at the bottom there, and then I'll do the happy, which will line up on top. I often do the happy and the birthday with 2 different stamps or a stamp and a die cut. It just adds a little bit more interest to the card itself. Now for this one, again, I'm pretty sure that I used a few stickers, and I think I might have used the feathers. Let's just see how good my memory is. And yes, it looks like I'm adding 3 of the feathers onto this card, and I'm slowly working my way through my icon stickers. I definitely did not use them all. There is plenty left at the end of this card challenge, but I managed to use, in particular, several of the smaller ones, which I tend to forget about, and they end up all left at the end. So this is card number 10. So card number 11 is definitely the fiddliest of the templates. It has 4 strips of pattern paper and they weave together. I think if I did this again, rather than using liquid glue, I would actually use some double-sided tape and be a little bit more careful about where I'm putting the glue and the order in which I attach the strips together. I actually was a bit messy with this, and I got glue in places that I didn't need it. And I was a bit worried that when I completed the card, you'd be able to see that on the pattern paper. When I added my embellishments and my happy birthday, I managed to cover up a couple of my mistakes here. But the template itself, I think, was pretty cool. I didn't add a backing panel to this one. I felt like adding the 4 pattern papers was enough interest. So those 4 all interwoven on the left-hand side gave me a really good balanced starting point for the card itself. I have used after that a happy birthday sentiment, so it seems like I have 11 from 11. I've done all birthday cards in this particular instance. And I do think that I use just a really basic sticker, and again, I can't remember what it was. So once I tape all of this down and attach it to the card base, I then take a look at the stickers and try and work out what could I add that would be of interest. It looks like I've added a bunch of flowers. Now you can see me fussing with that a little bit there on the pink and white. That's where I had the glue where I didn't want it, but it's not too noticeable. I've now finished all 11 cards as part of the Dawn Lewis challenge. I really like the fact that these look so different from the challenge that I did in my previous video using the same paper pad. I hope you enjoyed, and I have put a link here to another video. Have a great day.